Hey, friend, welcome back to Priorities on Purpose. I am so glad you are here. Today's episode is one I've wanted to record for over a year now. We're diving into a topic that so many of us struggle with, but we don't always talk about. Friendship. Whether you've moved to a new town or feeling stuck in the surface level connections, or you're just realizing how hard it is to build deeper friendships as an adult, this conversation is definitely for you. I'm joined by my new friend, Cecilia Curtis, who's the go-to voice when it comes to all things friendship. She's the host of the Friendship Tour podcast and brings so much wisdom from her own experience as a military wife and mom who has had to rebuild friendships over and over again with each move. In this first part of our conversation, we talk about what gets in the way of friendship, like not asking for help, staying guarded, and waiting on someone else to make the first move. You'll also hear some real life stories from both of us that I think will have you nodding along and agreeing with both of us. So it's so good. You're going to love it. I can't wait for you to hear. And then make sure you come back next week for part 2, because part 2 is just as good. I couldn't stop. I couldn't pick what I was going to have you guys listen to. Like you've got to hear the whole conversation. So with that being said, let's jump in. Hey there, I'm Melissa Batt, the host of Priorities on Purpose, a podcast for overwhelmed women who are tired of going through the motions. You know there has to be more to this life than the cycle of numbing out, scrolling social media, exhausting yourself with a never-ending to-do list, and still feeling like a failure at the end of the day. You have hope that tomorrow will be different, and I'm here to help you make sure that it actually is. I'm a Christian life coach, and on this podcast, we talk all about intentional living, mental health struggles, and tangible ways to be the best versions of ourselves with Jesus at the center. I promise to be your hype girl and biggest cheerleader as I share simple strategies to help you get out of your rut, eliminate distractions, and live the life you're created for. Are you ready to go beyond existing and learn how to truly live? Put your earbuds in and let's get to it, friend. Hey, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Super excited. Today, we have a friend who's going to be talking about friendship, Cecilia Curtis. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Melissa. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes. So listen, I was listening to her podcast and she talks about friendship. And I have had this on my list of having someone come on to talk about for probably a year, like looking for the perfect person, because the podcast is called Priorities on Purpose. And sometimes we need to do things intentionally. And I think that friendship is something that gets missed a lot. Mm-hmm. And as someone who's an introvert and I've moved a lot and all the things, like friendships are hard. Like I think it was hard in grade school, but it's also like hard as adults because I now have older kids. So it's not like we're, well, I take that back. I have a 16-year-old boy who is dating girls. And so I get to meet their parents. But if that relationship at this age, about the time we become Facebook friends, they've done moved on to somebody else. Like, right. I'm like, I'm not interested in you anymore. And so I'm like, okay, friendships are hard. So I'm excited to have you on and give us all the tips. Tell us a little bit about yourself and like why this is so impactful and why your podcast, the Friendship Tour, right? That's the name of your podcast.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So like, why is this a thing and why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah. Well, I'm a wife. I am a boy mom. I've been married 22 years. I have 3 little boys. They're 8, 6, and 4. I am married to someone who just retired from the Air Force. So my husband just retired from the Air Force about a month ago. Yay, we had a big party. It was so much fun. But he just retired from the Air Force. But the whole time we've been married, he's been in the Air Force. So we've been moving all around and we're always far from family, always far from my childhood friends who I have thankfully maintained relationships with them. But every few years, it's like I'm picking up, I'm moving, I'm starting over, I'm having to create new relationships while also trying really hard to hold on to the relationships that I've already established. So I actually started my podcast as a way of just reconnecting with some of the amazing people who I've met along the way over the last 22 years that we've been married. But along the way, I realized there's so much more that we could be talking about when it comes to friendship. Like women are really, especially at our age and at this stage of life where maybe you've poured a lot into the kids or you've spent a lot of time on your career and now you look up and you're like, hey, I haven't gone out with my girlfriends in 6 months or in 2 years, whatever it is. I just realized there's a lot more we could be talking about when it comes to friendship. So I still reconnect with my friends on the podcast an awful lot, but we also talk about some of those topics that are on everyone's minds when it comes to friendship. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it, and I hope others do too. I think it's fun and awesome.
Love it. And yes, okay, so we already have that in common. My husband is not military, but he's an engineer. And we've moved a lot for jobs. And so it's so hard moving to a new area and, getting out there and connecting with new people. I will say that I have done a great job. I feel like I've done a great job of remaining connected to the people like where I used to live.
Right.
I've made good friends. And so, those I've still stayed connected. Could I do better? Absolutely. But coming to a new area, like this just kind of comes up for me and I'm going to share it with you and then I'm going to ask you some questions. But so I have a friend where I'm at here locally. We go to church together, or we did. We actually go to different churches now, but we're still part of the same home group. And she messaged me one day and I can't remember what it was, but I was like extremely stressed out. And she was like, hey, what can I do to help you? And she volunteered to do something. And because I have never really had good friends locally, I realized, number one, I appreciated that so much, but also it showed me where I was failing because I didn't see any opportunity. Like I just missed those opportunities for her. I was like, wow, I should have volunteered to do something like that for you. And that did not, like, I never even offered to help her when she had a big party. I could have came over to help. Like, it didn't even occur to me because I'm so used to not having local friends.
Right.
And so I love that she did that, but it was also just a good call out for me to be like, ooh, like, you need to do better in this area of offering help and showing up for your friends.
Yeah.
So any feedback on that? Let's just start there, I guess.
I do. I think offering help and being willing to receive help are actually key components of friendship. I think that's how you go from the shallow relationships to the deeper relationships. Like it's so easy to just, hey, you want to go to lunch? Hey, you want to grab coffee? But it's in those times of need when you show up for one another that the deeper, more meaningful relationships are formed. And I think that's what people are craving. A lot of people say, I need friends. I need deeper friendships. I need community. I need more connection. What they need is support. What they need is encouragement, So you might have plenty of people in your circle, plenty of people that but are you allowing them into your life? And are you allowing yourself to be part of theirs? There's this openness, this vulnerability, this authenticity that's really missing in a lot of relationships. People want to give the impression, and I think social media is a part of this, but people want to give the impression that everything is perfect. Everything in my life is good. So if I tell people I need help, then they'll realize it's not perfect. Well, nobody's life is perfect. Everybody needs a little help somewhere. And that's where the real relationships really happen. I actually moved here to Northern California like 4 weeks before my first son was born. And we didn't know anyone. We just didn't. And I had friends who had given me a nice baby shower before we left. But when I got here, I knew no one. So the baby was born. No one did the meal train. No one did anything. It was just kind of like us alone with this baby. And our family came to visit. But when I had my second son 2 years later, all these women from my Bible study were bringing food to the house. And I was like, wait, I didn't ask for any of this. Is this what's supposed to happen? Is this? And it was so helpful. Even just the little things like a salad and salad dressing that I didn't have to go to the store to get when I was struggling with the two little kids was just so, so helpful. And like you, I thought about how can I kind of pay it forward? Like, how can I be a better friend to the people who are having babies in my church or in my community? Or I know someone had surgery. Can I show up with some lasagna or some ravioli on their doorstep? Don't even want to bug them and knock on the door. Just know that there's food waiting for you. So I do think help and showing up for people when they need it is a huge component of friendship. I do.
One of the things that I remember, and this is like something God kind of showed me, was again, a weak link for me was it's hard for me to ask. Mm-hmm. And it's something that's extremely important to me. And I remember one of the ways that I got involved and like met people, because I was a homebody, an introvert. I knew when I moved away from everybody, I needed friends. And so the way I did that was getting involved in a direct sales company. Mm. And I've since resigned from that. I was a top leader for 10, 12 years. And it was great for me. But I was like, I just needed something to make me get out of my house and meet new people. And so there was a conference and I brought my daughter because I was going to be recognized. I was in the catalog. Like it was like this really big deal. And I brought my daughter because it was going to be during her birthday. And I remember like my best friend was there with me and we shared a room, and my daughter, this is the person who helped name my daughter. She's the one that actually gave me the name. But even in that, like I could not ask her to help me with Emmeline. Like I needed to be somewhere like 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't even know what time it was, but whatever time it was like super early. And Emmeline, when I got her up, because I was like, okay, she's just going to go with me. And she was like grouchy and she was super tired. And she was like really giving me a hard time. And I think she was like 6. Okay. Like she's young. Of course she doesn't want to get up that early. Mm-hmm. But my friend like comes out of the bathroom and I'm like yelling at Emmeline. Emmeline's crying. And my friend comes out of the bathroom and she's like, what are you doing? Like, just let her stay with me. Like, what are you doing? And it was that moment that I recognized, like, I needed that, but I didn't have the courage to ask because I was afraid to be that vulnerable. And, acts of service is my love language. Mm. And I find that when it's something that I truly need, like in that moment, yes, I needed that, but I was so scared that she would let me down.
Yes.
And disappoint me that I couldn't ask. And so that was an area where God had to show me like, this is an issue. Like and again, it takes courage to ask for what you need, and that like, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And in that, it ended up being fine. She hung out with my daughter and, she probably thought that was going to be the plan all along. And here I am like, trying to force my daughter up at the, crack of dawn to do something that she could have slept for another hour, And so in that though, like, I think lots of us are afraid to be vulnerable. And I think this is something that comes with friendship. You want to talk about that for a minute?
I do. I think you nailed it. I think it comes down to maybe an experience where someone did let you down. But you have to deal with that baggage. You cannot take those old wounds and your old way of managing relationships and your own emotions and your previous expectations. You can't take those into future relationships. So you have to do the hard work yourself, whether that's going to therapy or if it's something as simple as just acknowledging, you know what, so-and-so let me down. So now I think everyone's going to fail me. Some people, that's really all it takes, and they're really able to move on once they can acknowledge that. But it's something you have to do. Like, you have to deal with the baggage. Just because the last friend didn't work out doesn't mean the next 10 won't. Just because so-and-so didn't come to your birthday party doesn't mean the new friend won't come to your birthday party. Just because the last person fed your kid all Cheetos doesn't mean the next babysitter is going to feed your kid all Cheetos. And nothing wrong with Cheetos. They're just not a healthy, balanced meal. But yeah, you have to deal with the baggage. You have to work on yourself. You have to make sure you're in a place that you're open to receiving the love and support and the generosity and the help that other people are willing to offer. You can't open yourself up to everyone. Like, not everyone's going to be an amazing friend and an amazing person, but not everyone's going to be crummy either. And if you feel like your friendship picker is off, like, pray. Ask God for help. Ask God for discernment. Ask God for wisdom. There are examples in the Bible where people prayed for these things and God gave it to them. Like, people pray for all kinds of stuff. They pray for riches and jobs. No, let's pray for wisdom. Let's pray for discernment. Lord, show me the right people. Show me how to make friends with these people. So you have to do the work. You can't just pray. You have to deal with yourself too. But you got to let go of the baggage if you're ever going to have any meaningful relationships, including friendship.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that you mentioned, like, if your picker is off. I have a friend who was just talking about that. She's recognizing that when it comes to men in her life, like, she doesn't do a good job of picking the good ones. Her picker is off. I think that's the first time I'd ever heard that term, but it's so accurate that we can, and again, it's not that you just stop moving forward and you just like, okay, I'm not going to ever have any friends, like, living in fear. And, God doesn't want that. Yeah. And community is necessary. Yeah. I know some of the hardest seasons of my life, God had me, like, I wouldn't have done it on my own, but God was like, you're going to reach out to this person. And so I did. And, I'm like, I just was like, yes, Lord. Oh, okay, I'm going to do it. And a season came when there were times when I was struggling with depression and anxiety so much that, like, I couldn't fight for myself. Like, I needed my people to show up for me and pray for me. And so, none of them lived locally at the time. And I had just moved. So I didn't have, like, a core group, like, within church or anything like that. But I had this group of ladies that I could just be like, I just need you to pray for me.
Yes.
Because there will be, most likely, I would say, in all of our lives when we are too weak to pray for ourselves.
Yes.
And we don't have to, even then, like, I was too weak to go into the details, but I could be like, I just need you to pray for me.
Yeah.
And they would intercede for me. We need that. And that's why God wants us to have that. He brings people around us to surround us and encourage us and help us and all of that. Any thoughts before I go on to the next question?
I do. I mean, I'm obviously super passionate about friendship, but I'm also super passionate about community. And I think what the enemy tries to do is to tell us we're alone. Yep. And then give us all these reasons for why we're going to be alone, why we should be alone. Because the last relationship didn't work out, because we're introverts, so it's difficult for us to make friends, because we move a lot, so ... Like, there are all these excuses that people give. That's the enemy. That's not God. God created us to be in fellowship with one another, to be a community of believers, and we need that community. Sometimes people get hung up on the friendship. Everybody wants a bestie. That community is just as important. You talked about a time that you couldn't pray for yourself. My husband and I have been married 22 years. I mentioned that I have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. Well, what we had was a very long season of infertility. And I got to the point, like, we had been to all the doctors, we had done all the things, and I got to a point I couldn't pray for myself. Like, there was nothing else I could say, do, whatever. I was over it. I had moved on, like, it's not happening. But I had this community of sisters, these Bible-believing prayer warrior sisters, who I wouldn't even say they were my friends. They were part of my community. They were just Bible-believing, God-fearing sisters. And I will never forget, I didn't even tell them the details, but they knew. They just knew. And they put me in this circle and they all prayed for me. And I kid you not, and I won't oversimplify it, but now I have my 3 little boys. And I didn't know the prayers to pray myself anymore, but I had that community. And that's the power of community. That's the power of friendship. We're not meant to do life alone. We're just not. And it makes me sad when I think about people who are experiencing loneliness, they're experiencing depression because of the lack of community, because of the lack of friendship. I think we've gotten away, and I hope I'm not being too preachy, but I think we've gotten away from communities of faith. We've gotten away from some of the ways that we used to enjoy community. Maybe we go to the kids' events at school, but instead of talking to the other parents, we play on our phones, or we keep the earbuds in, or maybe we bring a book and stare at that. There are these ways that bring people together, but we're not. There are all these things happening. Okay, all right. You're going to let me preach. But there are all these things happening in real life that we're choosing not to be a part of. We're choosing not to be a part of. There are people out there who would be happy to talk to us if we just put the phone down, if we just look available, if we just look friendly. So, okay, I'm done. I'm done being preachy. But those are my thoughts. We're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So I just went on vacation, just got back, and I try really hard. Again, it is not easy or comfortable. Some people see me and they assume it's natural. It is not. It is very intentional to talk to people, connect with people. We Ubered, I tried to talk to every single Uber driver. Some of them was very awkward. And one time I almost cried because I was like, oh my gosh, I failed in that conversation, but I did try. And so there are so many things that we can do. And again, it's about doing it on purpose.
Yes.
I brought a book that I thought I would be reading because I'm like, okay, I get to read a fun book. It's going to be glorious. But instead, I was able to connect with my friend. We took a girls' trip, and I did not read one page of that book because we just talked the entire time. And it was so much fun. And talked to the people that were around me and, all of that. But I think I love the part where you said, if you just look available.
Yeah. Just look available.
Yeah. But also I think that we can be the ones, because this is what I tell my daughter all the time, because she's kind of like me. She's a little on the shy side naturally. And so she's like, I will talk to people if they talk to me first. I'm like, but what if the other person says the same thing? If you're saying, I'll talk to someone if they talk to me first, and she says, I'll talk to someone if they talk to me first, then nobody ends up talking. Someone's got to make the first move.
Yes.
Let's let that be you.
Yes.
Make the first move.
Yeah.
And it can be something super, there's so many super easy ways to do this. What tips do you have on making the first move?
As a woman, and it has to be genuine, compliment another woman. That is so easy. Just do it. And maybe you don't like her whole outfit, but do you like her glasses? Do you like her hair? Do you like something? Do you like her cool coffee mug? Just an easy compliment that is genuine. Don't be fake about it. But that is such an icebreaker for women. If she is reading a book and she looks up for a moment, be like, oh, hey, I read that book. Or, hey, what are you reading? Give someone an opportunity to talk to you. If you know that she has kids, ask about the kids. Parents love to talk about their children. If you're meeting at a volunteer event, talk about the volunteer event, talk about common interests that you have. I do think it helps if you're developing yourself as a person, so you have more interesting questions to ask, you have more to pull from yourself. But yeah, just ask the questions, be observant. What is she doing? What is she wearing? What does she like? Who is she with? Be observant and then ask questions based upon what you see, what you're observing.
I think about, and I don't know where I heard this analogy, but it's kind of like playing ball.
Mm-hmm.
Pass the ball, and if they pass the ball back, then you have a game, right? And so you pass the ball to her with a compliment or, a question or, something to get a conversation started. And, sure, some are going to be more closed off than others. And, some people's personalities, it's like talking to a wall. You can try and it's just not, they're just not going to reciprocate.
Yeah.
So then you just take your ball back and move on.
Yeah. And you have to accept it's not personal. Like, I think some people get their feelings all hurt. It's not personal if you ask someone a question and it turns into a dud. Like, maybe the person is really busy. Maybe they don't have time to linger and they need to get to work, or they need to pick their kids up, or they have an appointment. You don't know. So you can't take everything so personally. Another thing, don't assume they don't like you. Like, maybe it's just not their day. Maybe they're not feeling well. Maybe ... Like, don't take everything personally. They may come back and say, hey, I remember that she was nice to me 5 weeks ago and now I have time. And then the conversation is sparked. But just don't get so in your feelings that you think everyone is against you. It might just be an off day.
Yeah. I think of somebody from church. I moved again in 2023, I think. And when I left that church, someone came up to me and was like, you have no idea the impact that you had on me. You were the first person that welcomed me to this church.
Yeah.
And the whole time, I knew none of that. I thought she'd been there the whole entire time. But I was new-ish. And I had volunteered to work at like a fall festival type thing. And we were like in the same area. I think we were serving hot dogs or something. So like her and I just kind of bonded over that, serving the hot dogs and all of that. And I so wish she would have told me that ahead of time, like instead of waiting till I left. And she was like, you have no idea the impact that had, and just made me feel so welcome. And the whole time, like, I thought she was like, had been at the church as long as I had or longer. I just thought I didn't know her yet, you know?
Right.
And so, which brings me to the next thing of how do you get to know people? Get involved, do something, leave your house.
Do something. And my husband and I have been on this whole kick of just saying, do something for the past week. It applies in all areas of life. Like, people sit around and they're complaining about various aspects of their lives, their career, their friendships, their marriages, their ... You got to do something. You can't complain that you're not meeting people if you don't go anywhere or if you don't try something new. If you feel that you've exhausted all of the friendship options with the activities you're currently involved in, then do something else. Or if you're in church and you're like, I've been going to this church for 3 years and I still don't have any friends. I still don't know anyone. Well, what are you doing? Are you just going on Sunday and then leaving as soon as the service is over? Or are you serving somewhere? Are you engaging somewhere? Are you going to the coffee shop at your church and hanging out for 10 minutes after the service? I think a lot of people go in and out. They don't make eye contact. They don't look available. You got to actually go. And then go mentally and physically. Like, some people show up, but they're not there intentionally to make friends or to at least try to connect with people. Another thing I would say, if you're invited, go. You know, some people are like, that's not really my thing. I don't know if that's going to be the party for me. I'm not really into, again, all these other things. You don't know unless you try. And maybe the event is not for you, but maybe you'll meet someone at that event who's exactly your person. Maybe there's going to be another person at the event sitting in the corner who's like, this is not for me. And then you two bond over how the event is not for you. You just never know if you don't try and if you don't go. Another thing I like to do is to just simply, and you kind of touched on this, but just invite people myself. You know, I think I give people the impression that I'm more of an extrovert than I am, but I'm actually not. I'm actually not an extrovert. And I think because of that, I create the events that I like. You know, I invite people to do things that are enjoyable for me. And I hate to tell everyone all my secrets, but that's the truth. I invite people to things that I think will be enjoyable. I like smaller activities. I'm not going to invite 20 people to go out to coffee because that's just not my thing. I like the one-on-one interactions, maybe 2 or 3 friends at a time. Invite people. You know, start small. Don't start with a girls' trip, because if you don't like each other, you're stuck together for the whole weekend. You know, start small with like a coffee for an hour. It's very low commitment. Just do something. That's the point. Do something.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things, so like there were a couple years where God really challenged me to unbusy myself because I had been busy doing all the things unintentionally. And so like I had to create boundaries, and I basically stopped doing all of those things. And now I'm in a season where he's like, you're going to say yes. Whatever invitation comes to you, if you can do it, you're going to say yes. And so in that, it's so fun. And so like, I've always wanted to learn bunco. Like I've never like played bunco. Do you know what bunco is?
I don't know what bunco is. No.
It's some kind of card game. Or dice game. I haven't played it yet, but our church, like they had this thing where it's like, we're going to have bunco night. And I was like, I'm in. I am in. I'm going. We didn't end up having enough people to play. So we just sat there and talked. We were there till like midnight. It was so much fun. And again, like I knew, and bunco's coming up. I think it's tomorrow. So hopefully I'll learn how to play it. Then there'll be enough people, because I think you have to have a certain amount of people for it to like do well. But regardless, like I'm like, I'm in. Yes, I'm going to go. Anything that someone invites me to now, like if I can make it work, God's like, you're going to do this. And I know like there's for multiple reasons, but I know one of them is just to connect with people.
Right.
There's purpose in it. And I can become very comfortable in my home because I'm a homebody anyway. Like, I mean, I would never leave my house if I didn't have to. I love it here. But if I'm going to do kingdom work, sometimes, yes, I can do kingdom work like through the podcasts and stuff like that. But also like sometimes you got to leave your house.
You do.
And so, whether it's just to go to the grocery store or, going to church. And I love that you said that, because my husband, he's the extrovert, but a lot of times he's the one rushing out the door. Like, let's go. He's in the car waiting on me and I'm still talking to people, and he's not necessarily used to that. Normally it's me that's waiting on him, but I'm just being intentional, letting the Holy Spirit lead and trying to make the most of every moment that I have, because you never know. Hey friend, that's it for this episode. If you found value, I would love it if you could take a couple of seconds and leave me a quick review. While it may seem super simple, it is so beneficial and gives me the opportunity to help more women. Also, take a screenshot and share it on social media with your biggest aha today. Don't forget to tag me at Melissa Batt Official so we can connect. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, friend, keep walking it out one baby step at a time, because God's got you.